Hey, this is Pierre de la Côte talking. So, what happens? What happens when you don't do OCM? When you don't do organizational change management? I had this discussion with a friend of me the other day, and I wanted to make a video out of it because I think there's uh, a lot of confusion here, and people might not understand the benefit of OCM all the time. But let me explain how usually IT folks are doing a project. And I'm going to give a concrete example so it resonates and you better understand why OCM can help in this situation. So usually um, the core work of IT is to deploy technology. That's, if you don't have technology deployed, you cannot do anything. You cannot achieve a digital transformation. That's the first step. And sometimes IT provides a little bit of training. You're deploying technology. Let's help you to figure out how you use the technology. Sometimes they don't do it even, but most of the time they're providing some sort of guidance and training. So what happens? Is it successful? Does it mean that you achieved a digital transformation? So let's see with an example that I see very often, because often I'm called after this situation. So let's imagine that you're deploying Teams for the first time. Very basic, you deploy Teams for meeting and chat and eventually collaboration. So what happens? When you deploy the technology, it's not very complicated to deploy Teams. Quite frankly, we saw that with COVID, it was really super easy. Um, and maybe we provided some training or some guides, some learning platform to explain how to use Teams. But at the end of the day, when I come to visit some customers who didn't have any OCM plan, any OCM strategy in place, what happens most of the time is that people, when I meet with people, they're complaining about having still too many meetings, too many emails, and having on one side still even more meetings, even more emails than before. And now they have a new stream of information, which is Teams. They have notification in Teams. They have all chats, eventually channels, and they feel overwhelmed, even more overwhelmed. It's not because they didn't understand how to use the technology, how to use chat, group chat. They know how to use the technology. They know how to use the tool. So in a way, you can say they adopted the tool. But adoption is not digital transformation for sure. Adoption is just one phase. People need to understand how to use the tools to start something. But here the problem is, there's no guidance, and more than that, there is no alignment in with those guidance. So what OCM can bring on the table here? So first of all, when you do an OCM engagement, you try to understand the context. Why are you deploying this technology? What are the potential use cases? What are the potential resistance? How people are working today? What is their job? How technology can help them to achieve better their job? So when you work with a population, you find out that this population, this workforce, already is overwhelmed with a lot of emails. You try to show them, for example, taking this example of Teams, you try to show them Teams that can reduce the noise of email, and how can it, and you try to explain how it can do that, how it can help them to do that, because people are skeptical about it. It's a new tool. Now I had two tool. I had one tool at Look. Now I have two tools. How can it help me? I understand that now I can do remote meetings. That's good. I didn't have anything before, or it was not consistent. Now I have Teams, but for the chat, I have more chats and more notifications. That's a danger for me. So to try to understand the people, and that's the first phase to assess, understand where people are standing, where they're struggling. So that's a key point. And from that, you try to define a vision where you want to take them. So I like, and there's a lot of customers who went into that direction. Uh, One vision was to get out of email and transition to one tool, which is Teams, to do the job, to do the work. That's why Microsoft is calling Teams the hub of collaborative work. We can call it also the new operating system of collaboration. I like that too, collaboration and communication. So, so when you start also this journey of OCM, you try to draft a vision. One vision is let's move out of of Outlook to go to Teams. I even have had worked with a customer where the executive sponsor said, "I have a dream when we're not going to use any more Outlook to communicate to each other. We're going to use Teams." And so it was a strong vision. So that you start to build this vision after doing some interviews to see if it's a potential vision that can be successful. So that's the first phase. You assess, you define the vision, and then you need to uh, build the right communication strategy and the right training strategy so people can understand what is the benefit for them. You know, they have two tools. They don't see the benefits if you just deploying those tools and tell them how to use the tools, or even if you help them how to use the tools. They need to understand the benefits. But that's not enough because they need to transition all of them, not just 20, 30, 40% of them. You need to have the vast majority to buy in this idea of transitioning out of Outlook to Teams, because if you don't do that, then you will have, as an end user, you will have different streams. Some people will still use Outlook. You will receive a lot of Outlook email, and other will use Teams. And the load of information will explode. And so you need to make people understand that's your vision. That's where you want to go. Um, you need to educate them how you're going to go and why it's so important to align. Everybody should align in this direction. There's always some exceptions. We know that, and it takes time. So there's a lot of frustration at the beginning because they still have a lot of emails, a lot of teams, especially if you don't rehearse this message. This is the vision we're targeting. Let's move out of Outlook, except for maybe communicating outside of the organization. So build this governance, build those guidance, so people can understand the benefits, can understand why you're doing that, can understand that it's key to, be educated, to be in a way to be very very attentionate about, vigilant about doing this transformation, this change, because you might want to go back to email because you used to email, or you might see people still using email, so you want to answer to the email. One of my tactics is to say, okay, if still people are using email to reach out to you, you know, forward the email in Teams and keep the discussion in Teams. Educate them, acculturate that way by it's a little of education. And if everybody, or at least a lot of people are doing that, probably through a champions community, then people will start to realize that yeah, there is a vision. Yeah, he's right. There is a vision. That's why he's doing it in Teams and not in Outlook. So you need to be consistent. You need to rinse and repeat the message. It takes time for people to change habits, like email has been ingrained for 2 decades, maybe even more. I don't remember. So it takes time. It takes energy. It takes strategy. So that is the whole goal of OCM, to build a strategy and execute the strategy, measure if the strategy is working, adjust the strategy to be sure that people are following the strategy. And you can adjust the strategy. You can maybe you can first you can be bold, saying all the communication should be in teams, and maybe then you can start to identify some scenarios where you might not want to be in teams. But this is an ongoing effort. This needs tenacity, and this needs a plan. And OCM is anything but making a plan, adjusting the plan, measuring the plan, and adjusting after some experience. And the benefit is that you can see clearly when you do that, that if you do that proactively, instead of just deploying and training some users on the technology, how to use the technology, you become, if you're in IT, you become a partner of the business. That's what OCM also is achieving, is helping IT to become a partner rather than a resource. So partnering is anticipating, is listening. That's why we have interviews, listening to business users to understand, where they're struggling and help them to transition, not just by using the technology or deploying the technology, help them to understand the vision, help them to implement the vision, help them to adjust to the vision, help them eventually to extend the vision. By listening to them, you can identify their what they're doing every day and maybe where the technology can help them to do a better job. So this is really key, and because if you don't do it, what happens? People have more email, more chat, more notification, more and more and more. They're overwhelmed, they're burned out, they lose engagement. And even if IT did a great job, this is a failure. So OCM gets the big picture of it and try to build a strategy around this big picture depending on your goals and build a consistent message, a consistent vision, a consistent plan around your strategy so people get on board with it and get satisfied with it. So this is really key to me to engage with OCM. It's not just because that's my job. It's not just because I'm passionate about it. It's because I see every day I'm involved more and more in Teams engagement where Teams is already deployed, but the customers are not satisfied with how people are leveraging Teams because they feel there's something wrong. They're not sure what is wrong, but they feel people are not using Teams properly. They see that Teams for collaboration is not used properly or not used at all. They can clearly see that there's some signs of uh, Teams fatigue in general. When the promise was, it will bring more value. So I'm involved in that kind of a project. So it's really based on my experience that I'm sharing that OCM is essential in any project of digital transformation. So that's why I think you need to engage with OCM because at the end of the day, it will be the benefit of everybody. It will be the benefits of end users for sure. It will be the benefit of managers. It will be the benefit of IT people, and finally, it will be the benefits of the organization. So I know that we're in a world where we don't have the time for nothing. So we're rushing to the essential, and the essential is definitely deploying the technology because if we don't do that, nothing happens. Um, so we're focusing, a lot of IT are focusing on that, but they forget about, what's come next, what is more important after that. This is a requirement. That's the core job of IT, and often IT that is felt as a resource to the business. But if you want to really partner with your business, if you want to really bring value, have an impact on your business, then you need to have a strategy that goes way over the typical deployment. You need to build this strategy. You need to help end users to buy in the vision, understand the vision, help them to find their use case, help them to change the way they're working. You need to be a partner with them because you don't know their job and they don't know IT. So you can help them to connect the dots between those two. And that's, I think that's the future of IT, having a better understanding of what their end users are doing so they can better serve themselves, their peers. It's not just about being an expert in technology, not working in IT. It's about being an expert in IT, but helping end user to leverage IT for what they need, not for the sake of having a new tool or modern tool. That doesn't make any sense. And it takes time at the beginning because you need to assess things, you need to strategize this. But there are some strategies to be able to do it quickly with some iteration. And digital transformation is all about iteration. You don't want to go in a tunnel effect by trying to control everything before starting. You can assess quickly. You can get some strategy quickly without addressing all the strategy, but at least the main one. And then you can reiterate and adjust the strategy, build new strategy, enhance the strategy, and that goes through OCM. There's no other way to address this. So remember this example. Tell me if it resonates with you. I deployed email a long time ago. I deployed Teams recently, and people are still having more and more email and more on top of that, more and more notification and chat. There is a problem here. And the problem is they didn't have a strategy. And even if, you know, when you have a strategy, you still have a period of time where there's some of overlap. And you need to, even if you have a good OCM strategy, I've been working with customers who have deployed email, deployed Teams, had a good vision, and explaining the transition, what were the benefits of transition from Outlook to Teams, explaining use cases. And still, when I met with them a year after, they were still struggling having too many emails. And that's not because strategy was not good, might be the reason, but also it's because it's perpetual effort. You need to be vigilant, you need to be cautious if the vision is well understood. You need to measure to see if it has an impact. You need to see if there are some divisions who are not understanding the strategy. So it's constant effort where you need to rinse and repeat the message, and especially for new hires who don't know anything about it. So you need to include it in the onboarding experience. So it's a strategy that has to become also tactics. It has to be revisit from time to time. It's perpetual. Digital transformation is perpetual, and OCM is very key in these engagements. Hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think about it.